We have a quorum. If all town meeting members would sit in the front part, and everybody else in the back part of the auditorium. If a town meeting member sits in the back of the auditorium, we won't be able to count the vote.
Rich, start recording.
Where did that come from? Oh. Okay, I want to thank you all for being here, getting the meeting started almost on time. I think we should start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would like to have counters for each section. Over here, Rocco Morano and Beth Johnson. In the center, Kirsten Sampson and Barbara Granger. And over here on the right, Bonnie Johnson and Patricia Maha. If you would come up and get sworn in, please. I'm just waiting for the rest of the school committee to come in, let them get seated. For the new members here, there are a few rules that we have. First one is, as I said before, all town meeting members, please be seated in the front of the auditorium, and everybody else in the back of the auditorium. Please make sure your cell phones are silenced or shut off. You were handed a number stick. Please raise it when voting. If you want, you can give it back on your way out or leave it on the desk on your way out. If you wish to address this meeting, you should do so only after being recognized by the moderator. I will then ask you to come to the microphones. There's two of them here. Give your name and your precinct. If you are reading one of the motions, please sign on the first line and put your precinct, street address and precinct number on it, please. Anybody have a question on those? The next thing is, people want to shorten the meeting a little bit, and so what I'm going to try tonight is I will read the article. I don't make the motion, but I will just read the article. And somebody will get up and say something to the effect that I make a move that article, whatever it is, I don't know where my paper was. I had one on that. Be moved. I move the town meeting approve Article 1 as written in the warrant for October 24, 2017, special town meeting. They haven't, the papers have already been passed out, so you will hear it. I didn't get one of those. That's about it. No? Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, that's what I need. Okay. With that in mind, the first article is to hear the report of the Finance Committee and other town offices and committees, or act on anything relative thereto. Mr. Hussey.
Mr. Moderator. Good evening. When we last met in May 2017, town meeting approved a $64 million budget for fiscal 2018, which included a tax levy increase of approximately 1%. Proposed significant revisions to that budget include $82,000 in net additions to Article 2, which is the operating budget, use of a total of $675,000 in free cash, which includes $350,000 to the stabilization fund, $175,000 to OPEB liability trust fund, and $150,000 for a study of Auburn's public safety buildings. One other significant general fund request is for $100,000 to initially fund a multi-year streetlight upgrade. Regarding the warrant articles, the Finance Committee takes the following positions. All articles, except Article 11 and Articles 20 through 22, we recommend approval. Articles 20 through 22, we defer to the petitioners due to their initial non-financial impact. We do have just a few comments on certain articles. I'm not commenting on all the articles, just to save some time tonight. Article 2 increases the operating budget by $82,000. The largest increases are $25,000 each in the reserve fund, a new economic development position starting in January 2018, and electricity expense. The Finance Committee recommends approval. Article 11 proposes $30,000 for the relocation of the skate park for future use as a dog park. The Finance Committee voted to defer to the petitioner. Article 14 seeks to utilize $150,000 in available free cash to evaluate the current public safety buildings and make recommendations on the feasibility of renovation, expansion, or construction of separate fire and police buildings for a joint public safety complex. The Finance Committee recommends approval on this article. Articles 16 and 17 appropriate $350,000 and $175,000 from free cash to the stabilization fund and the OPEB liability trust fund, respectively. The Finance Committee recommends approval. Further, the Finance Committee would like to recommend town meeting members that should Article 14 fail or be amended to a lower dollar amount, that the balance of funds not approved in that article be added to the stabilization fund. Article 23 addresses zoning bylaws relative to the revised proposal of adding Mass Pike billboards behind the Auburn Mall. The Finance Committee continues to recommend approval of this project as an economic driver for the several businesses that make up the Auburn Mall and any ancillary business in the business area that will derive increased business from this new proposed advertising medium directed at the Mass Pike. Respectfully submitted, Kevin Hussey, Chairman, and Kavanaugh, Vice Chair, Ed Coleman, Kim Holstrom, Mallory O'Brien, Kevin Kennedy, Trevor Sansucci.
Thank you. Mrs. Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, town meeting members. The Board of Selectmen makes the following recommendations on the special town meeting warrant. Articles 2 through 8, the Board of Selectmen voted to recommend approval. Articles 9 through 15, The Board of Selectmen voted to recommend approval. On June 26, 2017, the Board of Selectmen took a vote to support the recommendation of the Dog Park Committee for the Option A location of the dog park at Lemansky Park. Option A included moving the skateboard park to another area of Lemansky Park. Article 11, which seeks to appropriate $30,000 to relocate the skateboard park, is a result of that vote. Articles 16 through 19, the Board of Selectmen voted to recommend approval. Articles 20 through 23, the Board of Selectmen voted to recommend approval. There have been significant revisions in the zoning bylaw amendment proposed in Article 23 since it last came to town meeting. The amendment, which would allow 2 digital billboards in the Regional Mall Overlay District, is very important to maintain a strong economy in the town of Auburn. Article 24, the Board of Selectmen voted to recommend approval, submitted by Doreen Goodrich, Chairman, Ken Holstrom, Vice Chairman, members Daniel S. Carpenter, Lionel R. Berthium, and Tristan J. LaLiberty. Thank you.
I believe that's it for the reports. Are we ready then? Article 2. To see if the town meeting will vote to amend Article 3 of the May 2nd, 2017 annual town meeting as follows. Increase line item 011322-5781 reserve fund from $175,000 to $200,000. Add line item in number 01155 Information Technology Department, MIS, social media stipend for $2,000. Increase line item 011992-5211 electricity from $99,000 to $124,000. Increase line item 011992-5740 insurance and bonds from $760,000 to $775,000. Add line item 01291 emergency management stipend for $2,000. Decrease line item 01302-5691-00 Bay Path from $1,123,189 to $1,120,931. Add line item in Department of Development and Inspectional Services, number 01175, Planning Division for Economic Development position for $25,000. Decrease line item 017-522-591734, interest, GOB, $3,256 from $62,418 to $53,484. Increase available fund reserves for appropriation dog licenses from $24,418 to $39,000. And further to approve as amended fiscal year 2018 budget for the town of Auburn of $60,597,987 or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, Deb Valentine, Precinct 5. I move that the town meeting vote to approve Article 2 as written in the warrant for the October 24th, 2017 special town meeting.
Is there a second? There's a second. Mr. Kabanovich.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, all, and welcome to all the new town meeting members. I'm going to give a brief presentation. I just want to bridge from the conclusion of our May 2nd annual town meeting to where we are presently, and what revenue sources and what expenditure changes have allowed us to make a request of about $1,026,000 of warrant article funding request. So behind me, you will see the final outcome of the action taken by you, the town meeting members, at the annual meeting on May 2nd, 2017. At that time, we had proposed total utilization of just under 1% of Proposition 2.5. There were some unknowns at that time. The cherry sheet numbers were not final. The local receipt actual numbers were not final. And I'm going to identify those changes in different revenue sources on the following slide. So the local receipts that we estimated at the annual town meeting versus what we actually received allowed us to make some amendments to the local receipts to bring it in line with those actuals. As a result of that, we're estimating for FY18, and will be submitted on the tax recap sheet, of an additional $184,532.88. Our cherry sheet revenue final numbers released by the state gave us an additional $59,479. Our tax levy, and we are at 1.25 of a possible 2.5%, would give us another $250,259.63. The debt exclusion is a result of a bond issue that we went out for in September. There are some offset receipts as a result of a premium we received on a middle school borrowing. That total amount increased by $175,174.67. Our available funds, we had a net change down $153,665.70. And for the first time, based upon our free cash policy, we're asking to appropriate $675,000 based upon, and I will get into the policy in a few minutes, $675,000 of an additional $1.4 million that was certified by DOR in September. Total revenue source increases, $1,190,780.48. On the appropriation side, we had cherry sheet assessments that come to us by way of cherry sheet distribution. These are charges and assessments that we have to raise. We had a net increase of $37,745. The offsets, on the other hand, we had a net gain of $10,240. In other amounts to be raised, this is a pay down based upon a State House note of roughly $3 million that we secured to help fund our obligation and expenses for the New Auburn Middle School. There's a pay down option of $133,000 that we have to raise on the tax recap sheet. As a result of that, total revenue sources offset by changes on the appropriation side, we have available for supplemental appropriation $1,030,275.48. On the excess levy and the amount of taxation relative to this budget, as you can see for FY18, and it's still showing as projected subject to the outcome of tonight's meeting. We have total utilization of Prop 2.5 of 1.25. We would have excess levy growth of about $500,000 to $4,561,404. Last fiscal year, our excess levy was $4,065,402. What I can tell you is because we are not taxing to the max, that results in savings to the residents and taxpayers of this community, as well as our commercial and industrial taxpayers. We are building up excess levy. Excess levy is an additional amount of money that the town has the right to raise through taxation, but we are choosing not to. That's part of a financial plan as a result of debt exclusion votes that were supported by you, the taxpayers in this community, this is our way of trying to offer the taxpayers some relief as a result of assuming that burden. Over an 8-year period, we saved the taxpayers $23,225,951 as a result of not taxing to the max. The amount we were allowed under the state, under Prop 2.5, over that 8-year period, that amount equals a 20% increase, 2.5% each year, times 8 years is 20%. The 8-year utilization factor, out of that 20%, we only taxed at 8.60%. That's an average of 1.07 out of a total Prop 2.5 each year. Here's our certification of free cash. We were notified as a result of our filing to the Department of Revenue on September 20th. Our free cash certification for the general fund is almost $10.8 million. Our enterprise fund for the sewer department resulted in a cumulative retained earnings of almost $1.37 million. In year 2, we had a half year. We're very proud to say that we're running a profit for the golf course. The first 6 months of the golf course, when we opened up in January of 2016, resulted in a net profit of roughly $45,000. Year 2 resulted in a profit of roughly almost the same amount, $42,000. That's fully loaded with all the indirect costs assumed by the golf course as well. So they're picking up 100% of the cost. There is no subsidy from the general fund. Totally paid by user fees. Tonight, we're asking $675,000 be appropriated from free cash. Here's a free cash amended policy that we proposed and brought before the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen in June of 17. That basically states the following. We set a benchmark based upon our financial plans. It's a combined unassigned fund balance, which is a combination of our free cash and stabilization fund. We needed that to represent as a total 20% of our net operating general fund revenue. We have met that benchmark. As a result, we have proposed that any net gain on an annual basis of free cash would be split in half. 50% would remain in free cash, and the other 50% would be available for appropriation for non-operational expenditures. Our financial policies state that we cannot use free cash as a revenue source for our general fund operating day-to-day expenses. Once you build that into the operational side of the budget, you have to be able to support that in future years. Based upon this financial policy and based upon our certification of free cash for FY17, the amount that we would be able to appropriate is $699,557.75. We are asking a total recommended request of $675,000. And this is the final slide. This just shows you the amount of the request of $1,026,014.30. We're going to raise and appropriate and cover through general taxation $298,050. $675,000 will come from free cash, with the remaining balance coming from available funds of $52,964.30. Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, that concludes my presentation. That's a summary of what's before you under Article 2, as well as some of the other funding articles that will be requested tonight. Thank you. Thank you. Town manager just brought to my attention, there is one correction under Article 2. The third sentence from the end of Article 2, it states interest GOB. That's general obligation bonds. That's interest we're paying on $3,256,000. So there was a zero error there, and there was an omission. That amount, once again, interest GOB, $3,256,000. Thank you.
I want to point out right now that our state representative, Paul Frost, was here. I think he's out in the corridor talking to somebody, but I thought I would just tell everybody about that. Are there any questions on Article 2? Not seeing any then, we must be ready for the vote. All those opposed, please raise their hand. All those in favor, raise their hand. It's a unanimous vote. Article 3, to see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $4,374 from general fund revenues to the Auburn School Department operating budget for fiscal year 2018 to fund transportation costs for homeless and/or unanticipated. To see if the town of Auburn, to see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $4,374 from general fund revenues to the Auburn School Department operating budget for the fiscal year 2018 to fund transportation costs for homeless and/or unanticipated transportation for those students to their educational programs or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion? Mr. Dufour.
Mr. Moderator, Tom Dufour, Precinct 5. I move that town meeting vote to approve Article 3 as written in the warrant for the October 24th, 2017 special town meeting.
Dr. Brunel?
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, town meeting members, members of the Select Board, Finance Committee, and School Committee. I thank you for the opportunity to provide you with just a brief update. A quote that I've shared before, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. And I just want to commit to you, on behalf of the Auburn Public Schools, that we are committed to continuous improvement in educational excellence. And I want to thank you for your past support and ask for it this evening as well. There are 3 articles before you this evening. The first one is just read to you to seek reimbursement of funds that have gone into the general fund for homeless transportation, either students who have been in Auburn and become homeless and we transport them here, or if they're living in Auburn temporarily and we transport them to their former district. Secondly, an increase in the Medicaid amount. We actually received this past year, the town did nearly $205,000 of the $160,000 that we had requested. We did an analysis, and based on students still in the district, we believe that the town will take in at least the $185,000. So we'd ask for that. That's in reimbursement for special education services and therapeutic services we provide to our students. And the final article of the school department is for the establishment of a special education reserve fund. This to be done with your approval hopefully this evening. It will not yet be funded, but the Finance Committee, Select Board, and School Committee have agreed to establish a working group to determine financial policies. So those are the 3 warrant articles before you. I did just want to take a brief minute to let you know, many of you were part of this process back in November of 2013 when we pulled together about 120 people from across the Auburn community, representatives of the town's administration, as well as various boards, people from the business community, clergy, higher education representatives, parents, students, and business owners alike. In that 4-year period, we have actually accomplished nearly all of the goals that were set forth in that plan, so it's time to embark on another process. We're actually going to be doing this on November 18th. It's a Saturday. It'll take place at Auburn Middle School. We're again seeking to bring together a wide variety of people from across the Auburn community. The Auburn Public Schools are your schools. So if you are interested in joining us, I would like to extend an invitation to you to do so. We're going to be coming together. Really, the overall review is to say, how will the Auburn Public Schools continue to evolve to ensure that our students are prepared to meet the opportunities and challenges of our changing world? If you are interested, please outreach at this phone number here at central office or email my administrative assistant. We would look forward to having you join us. And in closing, I just want to reiterate our commitment to educational excellence and continuous improvement. As a team, we believe in putting our students first in all decisions that we make. As noted here by Mr. Marston, excellence is not a skill, it is an attitude. And I hope that you, like me, take great pride in the banner that hangs in the high school. Noted here, we are Auburn. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Brunel. Are there any questions or comments on Article 3? Not seeing any, then all those opposed, please raise their hand. I don't see any. All those in favor? It's unanimous vote. Article 4. To see if the town meeting will vote to amend Article 13 for the Medicaid reimbursement amount approved at the May 2nd, 2017 annual town meeting from $160,000 to $185,000 to fund supplies in medical, therapeutic, and educational services for significantly disabled special needs students, as well as tuition and transportation to and from outside placements or within the district for special needs students, or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion? Yes.
Mr. Moderator, Bob Moffett, Precinct 4. I move that the town meeting vote to approve Article 4 as written in the warrant for October 24th, 2017 special town meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Moffett. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? Comments? Not seeing any, then I'll ask for a vote. We'll go with those opposed first. All those opposed, please raise their hand. All those in favor? It's unanimous vote. Article 5. To see if the town meeting will vote to accept the provisions of Chapter 40, Section 13E of the Massachusetts General Laws to establish and appropriate or transfer money in Special Education Reserve Fund with the stipulation that no funds will be allocated into such accounts until policies and agreed upon and approved by a vote of each of the following town boards: School Committee, Finance Board, and Board of Selectmen, or act on anything relative thereto. Yes.
Mr. Moderator, William Byland, Precinct 2, Article 5. I move that the town meeting vote to approve Article 5 as written in the warrant for the October 24, 2017 special town meeting.
Is there a second? Any questions? Not seeing any then? All those opposed, please raise their hand. Oh, question. You okay? Well, we'll count them then if there's somebody opposed. All those in favor, please raise their hands. If the counters will count them in each section. If you could come down and give us the count. What did you say?
Which counters are assigned to counting the ones not in the prefect? With respect to the counting?
Mrs. Granger. Mrs. Johnson, Mr. Morano over there.
There's county members in the...
Oh, I didn't, oh, okay.
Why don't you guys count Sarah?
I'm counting you?
Me.
Gotcha. Okay.
And Kim. And Mallory. Diane.
Yes.
And Melinda.
We don't have the vote yet. How many? Okay, all those against, please raise their hands. Against the article.
If you're against the article, raise up the popsicle stick. Sign.
Please raise the sticks up high so they can see them.
One.
The vote is in, 89 for, 1 against, the article is approved. Thank you, Countess.
Point of order, Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
First of all, I didn't know if maybe somebody out there was asking a question on the motion. But if you did in fact vote no, and you see only one person voting no, isn't it in your jurisdiction to say that the article would pass instead of going through this every time?
I just prefer that if there's somebody's against it, to count the vote.
understand.
I'll try that
They would
next
have their
time.
say, but I'm sure that if there's
Okay.
90 people for it and one against, it would carry no matter what he said
Okay.
or she said.
Thank you, Mr. Bergeron.
Just move.
On the 2/3 vote, though, I will count. Article 6, to see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $5,000 from general fund revenues to abandon the monitoring wells at the DPW facility located at 5 Millbury Street, or act on anything relative thereto. Yes.
Glenn Feldman, Precinct 4. I move that the town meeting vote to approve Article 6 as written in the warrant for the October 24th, 2017 special town meeting.
Is there a second? Are there any questions? Mr. Stansel?
John Stencil, Precinct 5. What does that article mean, or what are we doing?
Is there somebody that can answer that? I see Mr. Coyle, I think, coming down to the mic. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator, town meeting members. This article is to abandon monitoring wells. Over 20 years ago, there was a fuel spill on site at the DPW. We've been monitoring groundwater since then. Through our environmental consultant, we feel as though we're at a point where we can close out the reporting, and we're in the process of doing that currently, and the $5,000 would be required to cap the monitoring wells.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have another question back there? Not seeing any though. All those opposed, please raise their hand. All those in favor? It's a unanimous vote. Article 7. To see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $25,000 from the general fund revenues to replace the conveyor belt system on 2 DPW 6-wheel dump trucks, or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, Jim Stolberg, Precinct 2. I move that the town meeting vote to approve Article 7 as written in the warrant for the October 24th, 2017 special town meeting.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those opposed? All those in favor? It's a unanimous vote. Article 8, to see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $5,000 from the general fund revenues for the landfill monitoring well, or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion on Article 8?
Mr. Moderator, Carla Morano, Precinct 5. I move that the town meeting vote to approve Article 8 as written in the warrant for the October 24th, 2017 special town meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second? There is a second. Are there any questions? Mr. Bergeron.
Just a question. If we kept these open, does it cost us anything? You say it's costing us $5,000 to
Is there
close
anybody
them?
that can answer that question? Thank you, Mr. Coyle.
This article is actually to drill another monitoring well. When the landfill was closed back in the 90s, as part of the DEP permit for close closure permit, we are required to do groundwater monitoring and also gas monitoring. So this article is actually to drill a fourth well on site on the northeasterly side of the property with a landfill adjacent to the railroad tracks.
Mr. Coyle, I think Mr. Bergeron has a
So
question.
there are other monitoring wells up there?
Yes, there are 3 other monitoring wells, and this will be the 4th one, and there are, I believe, 26 soil probes for gas monitoring. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coyle. Anybody else with a question? Not seeing any then, we're ready for the vote. All those opposed? I don't see any, so all those in favor? It's a unanimous vote. Article 9, to see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $100,000 from general fund revenues for streetlights, LED conversions, audit designed by, or acting on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, Rocco Morano, Precinct 5. I move that the town meeting vote to approve Article 9 as written in the warrant for the October 24th, 2017 special town meeting.
Is there a second? There is a second. Ms. Jacobson.
Good evening, town meeting members. We'd like to invite our consultant, Patrick Roach, from the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission To give you just a brief overview of this, and just by way of background, the town had applied for and received a grant to hire Mr. Roach through the MAPC, which is similar to the CMRPC. It's a different region. And we were able to work with Patrick, who's just done a tremendous job of analyzing all of our streetlights, determining if it would make economic sense to purchase those that we do not currently own. There are many we do own. To look at what the cost would be to purchase them, what the payback would be, and whether we would recommend moving forward on that purchase. So I'd like to ask him to come over. He's certainly much more versed at explaining it to you than I would be, and I think it will help you understand what the article's about. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Julie. So, as Julie mentioned, I'm with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. We're the regional planning agency for Greater Boston, and we were chosen by the state's Department of Energy Resources to administer a grant program statewide to help cities and towns with LED streetlight retrofits. So that's why I'm here. And I'll talk a little bit about this opportunity in Auburn. So there are 1,123 streetlights in Auburn, and they're on 2 different rates, which we'll talk about later. They're currently high-pressure sodium, and there's an opportunity to retrofit them with light-emitting diode or LED technology. And the project would likely have an annual savings of about $74,000. It would have about 240,000 kilowatt hours of savings, and that is about just under 2% of the municipal annual energy use. And the town is a green community, so it's trying to hit a 20% reduction goal. So this would help you get there. And the cost of the project, which I'll break out the steps, the gross cost is about $400,000. When you do the project, the utility company, I think it's National Grid in this case, they have a rebate, and then my agency through the state also has a grant. And those 2 reimbursement incentives or grants bring the cost down to $267,000 net. The payback would be under 4 years, and the expected life is likely around 20 years. The LED streetlights are warranted for at least 10 years, and they're factory rated to last a little over 20 years. So the lifetime savings after the payback period we project would be about $1 million. So there's a little background just on LED streetlights. Typically for a retrofit we look at energy savings of 50 to 70%. So there's lots of energy savings there. Those translate into dollar savings. The other place you see a lot of savings is on maintenance. So the LEDs last much longer than the current high pressure sodium lights, and so that helps you save on maintenance as well. And the other benefit is that you have improved light quality, so it's actually the spectrum of light that's put out helps you see colors better underneath it, which has a sort of public safety element to it, so there's improved light quality. This pie chart shows the streetlights in Auburn. You have 913 that are on a rate, which means the town owns them. They're on the S2 rates. The town already owns those. There's 210 lights that the town would need to purchase back from National Grid before it could retrofit them. And there's an error in my number 2 up there. It's not 11,000, it should be 1,123 lights. So the process here would be that you would purchase those 210 lights, then retrofit all the lights, and then you'd engage a maintenance contractor. And just a piece about the maintenance, the only thing you're buying back when you buy those 210 is the light and like the arm that it's on. So National Grid continues to own the poles. They continue to sort of handle the wires that run along them. If there's a power outage, it's still a call to National Grid to have them come and fix it. It's just that you now own the light and the attachment to the pole. So this table breaks out the costs of the project. So the buyback cost that National Grid has quoted is about $46,000. Then the first step of the project is to do an audit, and this is where we have a third party come out and go to each streetlight. They verify its location, they get a GPS point, and it sort of forms, it's the data that sort of forms the basis for doing the retrofit process. And often the utilities inventory is not accurate because they don't have spatial data about where the lights are. So doing this audit is very important, and it's a prerequisite to get the grant from the state. Then you go into the design process, and that's figuring out what light levels are right, what other sort of considerations for the street lights are important. And then there's the materials and the labor. So that brings it to about the $400,000 total. We estimate the utility incentive would be about $60,000, and they give a very standard incentive across the state. It's basically 25 cents per kilowatt hour that you save, so that's very standard. And then we've calculated the grant that we would give Auburn is about $74,000, bringing it back to the $267,000. So that's where you, that's what we'd be looking at for costs, and the savings we get are about $74,000 a year. As I mentioned, those come from both energy savings, because you're using less, and maintenance savings, because in the current rate you pay, there's a maintenance portion. By taking that over and having a third party do it, you get much lower rates than what the utility charges. So we're looking at about a 4-year payback. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. I hope you'll stay for, if the case there's any questions. Are there any questions? Mr. Byland.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. William Byland, Precinct 2. Just as a point of aesthetic, what are these bulbs, new bulbs, rated at Kelvin-wise?
So that's a choice that the town can make. So his question was, what are they rated at in terms of the Kelvin? Essentially, the color of the street light is rated in Kelvin, and a lot of the sort of more whitish light, that's at 4,000 Kelvin. 3,000 Kelvin is a little bit more warmer, has a little more yellow in it, and that's a decision that can be made during the design process. And yeah, it would definitely be something that would be considered in the design process. Both of those are economical choices out there, and some are even going a little lower than that.
Mr. Harper?
Bruce Hopper, Precinct 1. Are we guaranteed the grant as far as getting the savings?
Yes, so what we would do is sign an agreement with the town, pledging that we will reserve that $74,000, provided they meet certain milestones, the town meets certain milestones, which are mostly that the project needs to be done by the end of 2018.
So it's not guaranteed?
We will be signing an agreement to reserve that funding.
So what would the town have to do to get the money? In other words, if I'm going to vote tonight, what are we signing up for to get that savings?
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. Actually, I should mention that, which I didn't mention, is that I believe that the article in question is only $100,000, right? So the $100,000 covers from this the buyback cost, the audit, and the design. So it essentially gets you started on the project. I believe the plan was to come back to the town meeting in spring to request the balance of funds. So I just wanted to make that point of clarification. But yes, so the money, I would say it is, I suppose it's not guaranteed if the town doesn't follow through on the project, but if the town intends to follow through on the project, we will have a document that guarantees that money is there and is waiting for it.
So sorry to take up a lot of time here. So the $100,000 appropriation is just to keep the process going, and then you're going to come back to us in the spring?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And then with respect to Kelvin, the temperature, the AMA in 2016 unanimously said don't go over 3,000 Kelvin on LED because it's a health risk. So
sure. So
we don't know if that. So and I believe earlier you said we may go to 4,000, which would be the white, as opposed to the yellow.
Yeah, so what he's referencing is an American Medical Association report about color temperature and concerns over blue light in higher Kelvin, 4,000. So as I was mentioning earlier, that choice is something that the town should make about what color temperature you go with, and would be part of the design process. And the 3,000 Kelvin, the ones that they were recommending, are definitely available and economical. Some towns are choosing not to make that. As part of, later on, I think we could talk, there are some problems with that report, but suffice to say, you can go with 3,000 and those choices are out there.
So are your so it sounds like your figures are not based on 3,000.
The cost does not differ.
It won't change?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Mr. Dufour?
Tom Dufour, Precinct 5. Just with all of this stuff, actually answered a lot of what I was going to ask. The one thing it doesn't, with those 200 some odd lights that we have to buy back from National Grid, does the town currently still pay the electric bill on those 200 some odd lights, or would we be incurring an additional expense, and what would be the consequences if we didn't buy them back?
Good question. The town does currently pay the electric for those, and in that electric rate is also a sort of a maintenance rate that the utility is charging.
I saw one more hand out there. Yes, sir.
Bob Platikas, Precinct 1. Years ago, we had an electrical storm. I had forgotten there was a street light in my frontage on Millbury Street until the trees were knocked down. Are we still trimming these trees? Are we going to be able to see these lights in some cases? I haven't seen any tree trimming recently. Are we still doing that? Because you can have the best lights, but if you don't keep the limbs away, I know on the street next to me, there are some limbs hanging right over the electrical wires right now. Are we still trimming the trees to keep the leaves away so we can actually see the lights?
Yeah, so I think National Grid, currently handles the tree trimming. I don't believe they do much tree trimming related to the street lights themselves. I think most of their tree trimming is more related to the interference with wires. So, but if they are doing any tree trimming related to light, then that would not go on. But most of the towns that we've worked with, some of who've owned their lights for years, I don't believe tree trimming is a big part of what they do.
I thought the town was doing some.
Yes, the town does do some tree trimming. We did receive a grant, and we have equipment that we share with, I believe, 4 other communities that we get on a rotating basis through the town. However, when the trees are over wires that are owned by National Grid, then generally National Grid takes care of that. They don't want the town taking any risk over their equipment.
Thank you.
I didn't see any more hands out. Are there any more questions? Not seeing any then? All those opposed? I come to. Keep them up high. One here, wasn't there one up in the back? No? Oh, there's one there. Okay, thank you. I see 2, okay. All those in favor? The article passes. Article 10. To see if the town meeting will vote to amend Article 4, CIP funds of the May 2nd, 2017 annual town meeting from fencing Lemansky baseball to fencing parks, or act on anything relative thereto. I believe this is a 2/3 vote, by the way. Mr. Baker.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, Charlie Baker, Precinct 3. I move the town meeting vote to approve Article 10 as written in the warrant for the October 24th, 2017 special town meeting.
Is there a second? Second. There is a second.
Article 11 is tabled, I think.
Are there any questions? Mr. Kazanovich? You wish to speak?
No, I'm just
okay.
setting up the next...
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I saw that flash on. Then I don't see any questions. All those opposed? I don't see anybody opposed. All those in favor? It's unanimous vote. Article 11. to see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $30,000 from special revenue Yongsheng for the relocation of the skateboard park at Lemansky Park or act on anything relative thereto. We need a motion on Article 11.
Richard Levin Savage, Precinct 3. I move that the town meeting vote to approve Article 11 as written in the warrant for October 24th, 2017, special town meeting.
Is there a second? There is a second. Ms. Jacobson?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'd like to ask Amy Contois, our Animal Control Officer, to come up and just explain this article for town meeting members.
Thank you, Julie, and good evening, town meeting members. Included in your warrant packet and on the screen, we have a brief presentation to provide you with some additional information in regards to Article 11. So with Article 11, you are voting to appropriate $30,000 to fund the relocation of the skateboard park at Lemansky Park. So shown on the map, the existing skateboard park at Lemansky is located on the lower left-hand corner of the track. It's the large white square at the bottom of the screen. If you vote to appropriate these funds, the skateboard park will be relocated to the upper right-hand side of the track. It's a slight reduction of size compared to the existing skateboard park. The proposed area of relocation is a flat section of land that is slightly elevated above Brayman Street. Brayman Street also acts as the entrance to the lower section of Lemansky Park and connects to Wreathel Street. And as provided by DPW, due to the reduction of size in the park, the cost to relocate the skateboard park is only slightly higher than the cost to resurface the existing skateboard park, which will require maintenance in the coming years. The estimated cost of creating a skateboard park at the new location is approximately $30,000 versus the estimated cost of $22,000 to resurface the existing park. The relocation of the skateboard park ties into the dog park project, as the location of the existing skateboard park would be reused as the location of a dog park in town. The reuse of the existing skateboard park was proposed by the dog park committee and accepted by vote of the Board of Selectmen. And just as a brief overview on the process that the town has gone through in regards to the dog park, the process for the proposal of the creation of a dog park at Lemansky Park began in December 2016, the Board of Selectmen voted to form a 7-member dog park committee with at least 1 member from each precinct to review potential locations and conduct a cost analysis of a dog park. The dog park committee was later formed by a process designed by the Board of Selectmen. From January through June of 2017, the Dog Park Committee held 18 public and televised meetings. In May of 2017, the Dog Park Committee held a public listening session in preparation for their upcoming recommendation of a site to the Board of Selectmen. From May through June of 2017, the Dog Park Committee presented their recommendation to the Board of Selectmen for the establishment of a dog park at Lemansky. And on June 26th of 2017, the Board of Selectmen voted to accept the recommendation from the Dog Park Committee for option A at Lemansky Park, which would require the relocation of the existing skateboard park. And in conclusion, I would just like to reiterate that the vote that you'll be taking tonight is to see if town meeting will vote to appropriate those funds of $30,000 from the special revenue account Yongsheng for the relocation of the skateboard park at Lemansky. Thank you.
Are there any questions? I have one up in the back. Mr. Frost, I think, but I'm not sure.
Ken Frost, Precinct 4. Basically, I have 2 questions. One is, I thought the dog park was not going to cost the town any money, but here we're spending $30,000. Why are we doing that? I mean, if it's not supposed to cost us any money. And second of all is, how much money is in this special account for Yongsheng?
In terms of the special revenue account, this is money that was set aside when the high school was built, and the town acquired the property where Yongxing used to operate, where the restaurant was in the corner. For a period of time, when we took over the property, we had a lease agreement with them, and they were paying the town rent until their facility was built. That money was held in reserve until such time it was needed for any type of general revenue expense. We thought this would be a good qualifying expense, given the fact that it was held in reserve for a number of years and didn't rely on any tax levy money to relocate the park. So I believe there's a little over $30,000. It may be 32, but it's pretty close.
Mr. Hopper?
Bruce Hopper, Precinct 1. The costs here only talk about the asphalt. Is there any cost to the actual moving of the park itself? All the ramps, everything else that's in the park besides asphalt?
Mr. Coyle?
Yes, when we prepared the estimate, we looked at basically the cost of materials, because DPW would be doing the actual physical work. So we incorporated the cost of the asphalt, gravel, fencing, and then contingency. In terms of cost overall, where the current skateboard park, I believe, around 13,000 square feet or so, and the proposed relocation would be smaller, even though initially the cost would be more. I think long-term, as you maintain that paved surface, you'd actually see a wash in the cost. In fact, over a long period of time, because you're paving over a smaller surface, ultimately probably costs less to maintain that smaller area.
So,
Mr. Hopper has another question.
again, my question is, so what's that additional cost?
That would be the cost of our staff during it, so it wouldn't be a separate cost. It's basically they're on the payroll, so I'd have to calculate what the time would be for them to perform the work, which we haven't done that yet, but we could do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coyle. Any other? Yes, sir, up in the back.
Joe Fresco, Precinct 2. To get approval for the dog park, we were supposed to get a 10% funding for $25,000. Have we received that yet?
The question is, have we received the 10% match on the grant? So for those who may not have be familiar with this, the town would be applying for a grant from the Stanton Foundation. The maximum dollar amount for that you can apply for and receive is $250,000. That covers the construction. It covers 90% of the construction and 100% of the design. The design is 10%. So if we were to go for the maximum grant of $250,000, that would leave $25,000 for the design. So that leaves about $200,000 for the remainder that you need to raise 10%, or about $20,000. There is a group in town, the Fur Friends, who are in the process of, they've applied for and they're just waiting to get their 501c3 status, and they, pardon me, once they get that status, they will be able to continue their fundraising efforts. They have already started them, and they have committed to the 10% match. So if we apply for $150,000, back out $15,000 in design, and then take 10% of the construction costs. If we apply for $250,000, back out 10%, and then, back out the 25%, and we would end up with about needing $20,000 to $22,000. The town has committed, and the Board of Selectmen has asked that we do not apply for the grant money until those dollars are in place. So the town would not be committing any town funds to this. This would be all paid for through a grant and through private fundraising, but we have committed that we would not move forward and apply for the grant until those funds are in place. Actually, one of the stipulations of the Stanton Foundation grant is that we cannot receive the construction dollars until we actually show a bank receipt for those funds being in place, so it would be required.
Thank you. And just to follow up, if we do not receive those funds, we will not move the skateboard park? If we don't receive those funds?
If we do not receive, if we are not, the Fur Friends would be raising the money and then donating it to the town. So if the town does not receive a donation in the amount to match the grant that is required, we would not go forward with the project.
The skateboard park, moving of the skateboard park?
Correct. We would not move the skateboard park until we understand that we would be moving forward with the dog park. That's correct.
Thank you.
That would still require putting it on the CIP. In 4 or 5 years down the road, it needs to be resurfaced. So before we sink money into doing the resurfacing, we would need to make a decision on the dog park. It's my understanding that we're probably looking at 2018 for application, and that's assuming the Fur Friends can raise the funds. They are making progress on that, and they feel confident that they can. There's a round of funding every year with the Stanton Foundation, and we would be working on that grant application once those funds are in place and secured.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Are we ready for the, we have a question in the front.
Jim Stolberg, Precinct 2. So just to clarify, if this article is not passed and we do go forward with a dog park, the town of Auburn will no longer have a skate park, correct?
I'm sorry, do you mind repeating that?
Yeah, sure, I'm sorry. So if this article is not passed, but we do move forward with the dog park, we will no longer have a skate park in the town of Auburn, is that correct?
No. If this article doesn't pass and we cannot relocate the skateboard park, we cannot move forward with the dog park. The site that has been selected is the site of the skateboard park, so it has to be relocated. If this didn't happen, there is no second option right now. I assume the process would have to start all over again if indeed it did. So this is the site that was selected.
Are we, yes, Bruce?
I just want to get everything in order. Bruce Hopper, Precinct 1. So, do we need to get the money raised for the dog park first? Do we need to, I'm just confused as to why we need to approve $30,000 now for something that may or may not happen, when the may or may not happen is contingent upon something that hasn't happened yet.
We need to get their approval to relocate the skateboard park before we can take another step in the dog park, because if we're going to put the dog park on this location, we need to know that we have the approval to move forward with this site. Once the approval is in place, the next step is that the Fur Friends will continue their fundraising, which they're waiting for this evening's vote to see if we're moving forward on the project. So this is the very first step. We have a timeline that I wouldn't want to bore everyone with it, but it's got about 32 steps in it. And this is one of the steps on that timeline that has to take place first. Following tonight's vote, the Fur Friends, if it passes, would move forward on their fundraising. Hopefully they can move forward quickly, and then we can apply for the grant once they've got their donation piece in place.
Thank you. Now
Thank you. Are we ready for the vote? Where, who? Oh, yes, sir. This is the second question, so please make it quick.
Joe Fresco, Precinct 2. Has there been a study on the best place to put the new skateboard park, since we did one for the dog park?
The question is, has there been a study on the best place to put the skateboard park? We internally did look at a number of different sites. We would like to keep the skateboard park in Lemansky Park. It is, there is a monument there to a former police officer, and the police station is right across the street. We also felt that the location being across the street from the police station and being near the basketball courts and having plenty of parking, that the most practical place to put that would be at Lemansky Park.
From your knowledge, was there anyone against putting the skateboard park behind the houses of Rethel Street?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
From your knowledge, was there anyone opposed to putting the skateboard park where it's proposed right now?
Yes, as you know, you were at the meeting. So I believe you are an abutter to the parcel. So I know yourself and a couple of other abutters on Rethel Street were concerned with the location of the skateboard park being put where it was, and I believe we assured the abutters that there is a buffer. The question had come up, is there a buffer between the Rethel Street residents and where the skateboard park would go, and there is a very large buffer there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are we ready for the question?
Yes.
Okay. All those opposed, please raise their hand. I count 11 up. This is only a majority vote. Count 11. Yeah, I can just count, I got the issue 2, 4, 14. Okay. 14 against. All those in favor? It's a majority, so I would say the question passes. To see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $35,850 from general fund revenues for the purchase of personal protective turnout gear for the fire rescue department, or act on anything relative thereto. Mr. Mitchell.
Mr. Moderator, Jeff Mitchell, Precinct 3. I move the town meeting vote to approve Article 12 as written in the warrant for the October 24th, 2017 special town meeting.
Is there a second? There is a second. Are there any questions? Not seeing any? All those opposed? I don't see any opposed. All those in favor? The article passes. Article 13, to see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $8,382.30 from ambulance reserve for our proportions for the purchase of ballast protection for the fire rescue department, or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion for Article 13?
Mr. Moderator, Carolyn Vangel Corvo, Precinct 1. I move the town meeting vote to approve Article 13 as written in the warrant for the October 24, 2017 special town meeting.
Is there a second? Mrs. Corvo, can we have the article? Thank you. Did you sign it?
I did.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can we have a second? Yeah, I know we had one. Are there any questions? All those opposed? Not seeing any. All those in favor? It's unanimous. It passes. Article 14. To see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate the sum of $150,000 from free cash to hire an outside consultant to study and evaluate the existing public safety buildings, including police and fire, and to make recommendations on the feasibility of renovation, expansion, or construction of separate fire and police station buildings, or a joint public safety complex, or a combination of both, or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion, Mrs. Granger?
Yes, Mr. Moderator. Barbara Granger, Precinct 3. I move that the town meeting vote to appropriate Article 14 as written in the warrant for the October 24th, 2017 special town meeting.
Is there a second? There is a second. The master plan committee told me they wish to say something at this time. So if Mr. Bowling would come down. Thank you, sir.
Hi, Greg Bowling, Precinct 4. I'm also chairman of the Master Plan Committee. The Master Plan Committee has been charged with a multi-year process of updating a master plan for the development and operation of the town. We've been at it for almost 2 years now. As part of that process, earlier this year, the committee members did site visits on a number of town facilities, including the police and fire. And we voted in our October 17th meeting 5-0 to approve and support this article. We've found all of those facilities essentially deficient for their purpose in this day and time. And while we don't have specific recommendations for what the ultimate solution would be, the purpose of this article is to fund a study to evaluate design options, to look at the existing facilities, to evaluate, all of the different creative ideas that could come up to solve the fact that the facilities are not basically up to par for what's needed in this day and age. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowling. Ms. Jacobson?
Thank you. I'd like to ask Fire Chief Coleman and Police Chief Slukas to come down. I know they wanted to speak to this article as well. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, town meeting members. I'll be brief in case there's any questions. As the master plan, the chairman of the master plan committee stated, they did tour both the police and fire facilities in the early spring, I believe. For those who don't know, fire headquarters was opened in 1964. Stand back here. It was built in 1964, and it was designed at that time for a completely on-call fire department operation with really no thought as to whether or not there would be full-time staff down the road. Currently, the building, both fire stations, are occupied with full-time staff, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As many of you know, our current Station 2 on West Street was built in 1951. It opened as the Randall Elementary School. And in 1984, town meeting appropriated $80,000 to install 3 garage doors in the front of the building, and our current fire apparatus sits on what was the old cafeteria. For those that went to elementary school there, or those familiar with the design of our elementary schools, the stage area, that actually still sits on the apparatus floor, so that is part of the fixture. Many of the old features are still there. The pull-out tables are still in the walls, the bubblers. So the building was never designed to be a fire station, and we have many operational challenges with that facility. I get asked often, what the future of the fire stations hold, and the reality is, as the chairman of the master committee stated, there are probably more questions than we have answers at this point. So we really feel that we need the advice of an architectural firm to do a solid space and needs assessment to discuss what our options are: expansion, renovation, new. There's a lot of questions, and like I said, we just don't have the technical expertise to do that. Chief Lucas.
Thank you. I will also be brief. I guess I'd like to start with, I don't want anyone here to think that I'm lost on the fact that the current police station was built 17 years ago. I understand that. I get it. If I was sitting in your seat, I'd probably be scratching my head saying, what are you doing up there? But unfortunately, the building doesn't meet the needs of today. The building was too small when we moved in. It's too small in 2017, and it's going to continue to be too small going forward. This weekend, for example, we had more prisoners at the police station than we had cells. We've run out of room. We currently are jammed in dispatch. We can't fit one more monitor in there. We're charged with monitoring this building, every school in town, the town hall, and the Pappas complex. We have file cabinets in the kitchen. We had to take the kitchen table that we had in there for the officers to eat at and move it so that we could put file storage. The records room is jammed to capacity. We have when you dial 911, we have a $1 million piece of equipment that's owned by Verizon, and that is currently in a room that was originally built so that people that were under arrest could have an opportunity to speak with their attorneys. And this $1 million piece of equipment is it is and has been jammed in that room that was originally designed for that purpose. If you guys have any questions, would be more than happy to answer them, but that's pretty much the long and short of it. We really feel that we need to have an independent outside third party come in and take a look, and I'm not saying that building a public safety complex is going to be the answer. I don't know. They may say renovate, they may say move, they may say add on. We simply don't know. But we really need to look to somebody to come in to find out what their answer is going forward. And this is just the first step. This is going to be a multi-year process to even get this going. If in fact we decide to make renovations or build something else, it would involve finding a piece of land to perhaps build something. We don't even know where it would go. We just know it would have to be centrally located so that the fire department could stay within their mandated response times. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Not seeing any then? All those opposed? All those in favor? It's unanimous vote. Thank you, Chief Coleman, Chief Lucas.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Article 15, to see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $30,000 from general fund reserve revenues to replace the backup radio at the water tower site or act on anything relative thereto.
Ellen Gabriel, Precinct 1. I move that town meeting vote to approve Article 15 as written in the warrant for the October 24th, 2017 special town meeting.
Is there a second? There is a second. Are there any questions? Question, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Moderator, Joyce Christensen Violin, Precinct 5. I'm wondering, is this the property on Prospect Street? The water tank's there?
Chief Lucas?
It's the water tanks that are going to be replaced on Leicester Street.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Not seeing any. All those opposed? All those in favor, please raise their hand. It's unanimous vote. Article 16, to see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $350,000 from free cash to the stabilization fund or act on anything relative thereto. Yes.
Jerry Balan, Precinct 4. I move that the town meeting vote to approve Article 16 as written in the warrant for October 24, 2017, a special town meeting.
Is there a second? There is a second. Bring the article up here. Thank you. Are there any questions on this article? Not seeing any. All those opposed? I have one opposed. No, oh, sorry.
Sorry.
All those in favor? The article passes unanimously. Article 17, to see if the town meeting will vote to appropriate $175,000 from free cash to other post-employment benefits liability trust fund, or act on anything relative thereto. Yes.
Ellen Ethier, Precinct 5. I move that the town meeting vote to approve Article 17 as written in the warrant for the October 24, 2017 special town meeting.
Is there a second? There is a second. Any questions on Article 17? Not seeing any. All those opposed, please raise their sticks. All those in favor, please raise the cards. Thank you. It's unanimous vote. Please remember to return those so we can use them at the next meeting. To see if the town meeting will vote to supplement each prior vote of the town meeting that authorizes the borrowing of money to pay costs for capital projects and to provide that in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws. The premium received by the town upon the sale of any boards or notes thereunder, less any such premiums applied to the payment of the cost insurance of such bonds or notes that may be applied to pay project costs, and the amount authorized to be borrowed for each such project shall be reduced by the amount of any such premium so applied, or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion, Mrs. Proudy?
Yes. Beth Proudy, Precinct 1. I move that the town meeting vote to approve Article 18 as written in the warrant for the October 24th, 2017 special town meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second? There is a second. Are there any questions on Article 18? Yes, sir. Greg?
Could we just have a clarification from town manager? Sure. In essence, what this article does, it's a new DOR ruling.
That was my question. What?
Previously, every time we went out for a bond issue, we received a premium on the amount that we borrowed. In some cases, it was as high as $400,000. That money previously was allowed to be recorded for non-debt exclusion borrowing as revenue into the general fund. And in most cases, that skewed the local receipts for the year. DOR is taking the position that we are allowed to reserve that money now and not record it as general fund revenue. That money is to be set aside and can be appropriated for any like capital purpose that the borrowing allowed for when we went to market. Any vote out of that special account requires a majority vote. Normally, capital requires a 2/3 vote. In this case, there's an exception. Anything recommended to be purchased in terms of capital out of the reserve account will be a majority vote, not a 2/3 vote. This vote also retroactively goes back and applies to any borrowings that was approved by town meeting that was authorized and currently is unissued. So that's part of this vote as well. So if there are any monies that were approved through a capital or loan authorization that we didn't borrow, any of the premiums we receive on any future borrowings would have to be reserved as well.
Where do they show up? Where do they go? Where do those funds?
So the funds will go into what we call a special revenue account, which gets carried over from year to year. It doesn't close out to the general fund.
Thank you. Anybody else? Not seeing anybody else then? All those opposed? All those in favor? It's a unanimous vote. Article 19. To see if the town meeting will vote to amend the general bylaws of the Town of Auburn, Massachusetts, by adding a new section, Section 6.13, which will establish and authorize revolving funds for the use by certain town departments, boards, committees, agencies, or offices pursuant to the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53, E and a half, Section 6.13. As printed in the warrant for the special town meeting on October 24th, or act on anything relative thereto. Mr. Proudy.
Mr. Moderator, Ron Proudy, Precinct 1. I move the town meeting vote to approve Article 19 as written in the warrant for the October 24th, 2017 special town meeting.
Is there a second? Yes, there is. Mr. Kazanovich.
I'd like to offer an explanation for this warrant article as well. Once again, this is as a result of another DOR ruling that requires that our Chapter 44, 53 and a half revolving accounts, which typically are voted at the annual town meeting, now become incorporated into a general bylaw. There is a matrix here that identifies all the revolving accounts that were previously approved at previous town meetings that now get folded into this general bylaw. As a result of that, these no longer have to be presented to you, the town meeting members, at the annual town meeting.
Any questions? Mr. Bergeron. Please use the mic.
So
Thank
the
you.
chief financial officer is in charge of this, keeping track of these funds?
That's correct.
And you'll give a report on these funds at town meeting?
We report the balance of these funds, these accounts, both revenue and expenditure through the annual report every year.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Bowling.
Greg Bowling, Precinct 4. So then if we have new revolving accounts to establish in the future, that would have to be an amendment to the general bylaw and therefore be a 2/3 vote?
That would be correct.
Okay, thank you.
No, general bylaw is a majority vote.
Is that majority? Okay.
Yeah. General bylaw.
Anybody else have a question? It being none, this is a majority vote. All those opposed, please raise their signs. All those in favor? So voted. It's unanimous vote. Article 20, to see if the town meeting will vote to accept Mass General Laws, Chapter 54, Section 16A, as follows. In any city or town which accepts this section, if the warden, clerk, or inspector, or the deputy of any such officer, if any, is not present at the opening of the polls, the city or town clerk may appoint a person to fill such vacancy, who shall be enrolled the voter and at the same political party as the absent officer. If any competent person enrolled in such a party is present and willing to serve or act on anything relative thereto. Yes.
Mr. Moderator, Eric Berg, Precinct 1. I move that town meeting vote to approve Article 20 as written in the warrant for the October 24th, 2017 special town meeting.
Is there a second? There is a second. Ms. Grimo is going to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah.
So, Tom Dufour, Precinct 5. I'm guessing that the answer to my question is yes, is that this was specifically laid out by the state as to how this has to be written. The thought that just pops into my head with the way that this is written is what happens if we have a town clerk that is enrolled as unaffiliated, or however it is when you call yourself independent and you're not Democrat or Republican or Green Party or whatever. So what would transpire in that case if they're unaffiliated and there's no political party for them to also be affiliated with?
This is only for scheduled election workers, and when it says a clerk, that means the clerk in the precinct.
Okay.
So, does that answer your question? Are you talking?
Kind of, sort of.
No. It applies to election workers. So I have a list of election workers that are approved either by the Board of Selectmen or the registrars each year. So should I have somebody scheduled, and let's just say something happened the night, they call usually well in advance, but if they didn't show up at the polls, I couldn't reach them, I didn't have somebody, you came in and voted, Tommy, you were the same political party, could you work today? Would you be willing to serve?
Okay.
If you said yes, you could work.
So does that mean that only, say, the registrars, the people that would be,
That
you'd be
would
looking
be
for a
scheduled
substitute?
that day that didn't show up on the
Right,
day of
but
the
does that
election.
mean that somebody, that person, a person who fills that role in the town elections, that they have to be affiliated with a political party, I guess is my question?
They would be replaced by the person that was absent of the same political party. So if I had a Democrat working in the precinct that somebody couldn't show up, that is what I would replace
So-
them with.
I guess my question is, does that preclude you from having somebody assigned in the first place that's an unenrolled voter, or would you only be eligible to participate in that if you were registered to a party?
Oh, no, if they were an unenrolled, then
Okay.
an unenrolled one I could.
Okay, that clarifies it, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? There being, I don't see anybody else. All those opposed, please raise their hand. All those in favor, please raise their signs. Unanimous vote. Article 21, to see if the town meeting will vote to accept Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 110A, which states as follows. Any public officer in the city or town may remain closed. Any public office in the city or town may remain closed on all Saturdays as may be determined from time to time in a city by the city council, subject to the provisions of the city charter, or in a town by a vote of the town at a special or regular town meeting. In the provisions of all sections of the provisions of Section 9 of Chapter 4 shall apply in the same case of such closing or of such office on any Saturday to the same extent as if such Saturdays were a legal holiday or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator, Dan Diamond, Precinct 5. I move that town meeting vote to approve Article 21 as written in the warrant for the October 24th, 2017 special town meeting.
Is there a second? There is a second. Anybody have a question?
Town hall isn't open now on Saturday.
Huh?
Town hall is not open on Saturday now.
I know. Okay. Okay, all those opposed? All those in favor? It's unanimous vote. Article 23. 22, excuse me. To see if the town meeting will vote to amend the general bylaws of the Town of Auburn, Mass. by deleting section 17.05, 14B, and replacing it with the following language, in accordance with the authority granted to the Town of Auburn pursuant to the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 89, Section 9 of the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 85, Section 2, Section 7.05, 14B shall read as follows. In accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 85, Section 2, and the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 89, Section 9, the erection and maintenance of any official stop sign within the Town of Auburn shall be authorized by the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Auburn. Each authorized stop sign currently in existence and each stop sign hereafter authorized and erected shall be itemized in a list maintained by the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Auburn, or act on anything relative thereto. Mr. Frost.
Karen Frost, Precinct 4. I move that the town meeting vote to approve Article 22 as written in the warrant for October 24th, 2017, special town meeting.
Is there a second? There is a second. Are there any questions? Not seeing them then? All those opposed? All those in favor? It is a vote, unanimous. Article 23. To see if the town meeting will vote to amend the Auburn zoning bylaw by reviewing sections 3.7.5 to insert, except as and provided, in section 4.5.10.5, such that the section will read as follows. Billboards, except as provided in section 4.5.10.5, trailer camps, mobile homes, sales, trucks, stops, and all open-air storage of junk, including inoperable automobiles, in all uses which are excessively obnoxious or injurious to their neighborhood, or on all property in the vicinity are expressly prohibited in all zoning districts of the town, as written in a warrant for the special town meeting, October 24th. Is there a motion?
There is, Mr. Moderator. Joe Martin, Precinct 2. I move the town meeting vote to approve Article 23 as written in the warrant for the October 24th, 2017 special town meeting.
Is there a second? There is a second. Are there any questions? Ms. Jacobson.
If I may, town meeting members, I'd like to review for you why we're back here this evening with a revised bylaw amendment for the Regional Mall Overlay District. And I want to state up front, first of all, we thank you for your input. We did bring this article, warrant article, to the Maytown meeting, and it was defeated at that time, and I want to run through a couple of reasons why. And it gave us, town administration, the opportunity to go back and strengthen this. So we're bringing to you an even better product this tonight. And I want to quickly go over what this involves, because we have had some questions on it. Excuse me. Here we go. Just to give you an overview, for those who may not have been here in May, and to those new town meeting members who were here since then, welcome. Total Outdoor Corporation and the mall at Auburn LLC, which is the legal name, are proposing to construct and maintain 2 double-faced digital billboards in the rear parking area of the Auburn Mall. The billboards will be located in what is called the Regional Mall Overlay District, and the Regional Mall Overlay District applies only to 2 parcels, both of which are owned by Auburn Mall. It is strictly the mall. The proposed billboards would have, there would be a ground lease, Total Outdoor would have a ground lease with the mall for these signs. And the advertising, and you see this actually in the revised bylaw, the advertising is focusing these billboards on vehicles that are traveling on the Massachusetts Turnpike. They are equipped with the new Sightline LED technology, which ensures that light from the sign only goes to certain areas. Under Mass General Law, the reason we're back today is because town meeting must approve any amendments to our zoning bylaws. So I'm here to go over a few things with you and just explain so everyone understands why it is we're here and why this is so important to the town. This is important to the town for a number of reasons, and it's important to the mall, and the viability of the mall is very important to the town as well. So I just want to go over, we did have a meeting on September 28th. We invited all of you town meeting members, and several of you came. We televised that meeting, so if you weren't able to come, I hope you were able to watch it on Auburn Cable. We provided information to town meeting members at that time. We actually described the benefits. We showed them how this was a different bylaw than what we brought before you in May. And we provided a demonstration model, which is outside tonight at the upper level parking lot near the gymnasium. It's about a 5x10 model. And it was raining, it was pouring when we all came in here, but you could still see the model as you came in. I know you probably didn't want to get too close and stand outside, but we positioned it so you could see it from inside the door. So we thank you for bringing that Total Outdoor in the mall. So just by way of background, the original proposed amendment was approved by the Board of Selectmen, it was approved by the Planning Board, it was approved by the Finance Committee, and when it did come to town meeting, it failed to receive a 2/3 vote. The revised proposed amendment that you have before you, after that, town administration, we recognize that this is a really important issue to the town, so we felt that we should listen to all of your concerns and craft a revised bylaw that would address those concerns, because we care about what your thoughts are, and there were some very legitimate concerns that were raised that had to be addressed. So we went back and met with Total Mall, we met with the mall, and we came back with a new bylaw. The Board of Selectmen voted to support it, the Planning Board again voted to support it, the Finance Committee voted to support it, and here we are again this evening. Basically, the concerns that were raised, for those who were not here in May, the questions were, is there light pollution? What's the height of the signs from the Massachusetts Turnpike? What will the signs advertise? I won't go through them all. Will businesses have preference? What would we use for the advertising? And some of the comments that were made were that drivers would be distracted by electronic signs. There would be a cost to the town to remove the signs if they were ever abandoned. The lights would be seen from quite a distance away. And a bylaw shouldn't benefit one person or one company. And there was also a concern that the pictures that we had put up there were not accurate because you couldn't see what it looked like at night, which is why we wanted to make sure that we brought a model to you so you could actually see what it looked like at night, and we do have some pictures here. So basically the appearance of it is just to keep in mind that once you, if and when the town meeting approves of this, this still has to go through a process. It has to go to the Attorney General's office. And then once it is approved, it still requires site plan approval from the Planning Board. Again, there would be only a maximum of 2 digital signs that would be allowed, 2-sided signs. The face of each one would not exceed 48 feet wide and 14 feet tall. And just by comparison, the ZBA in 2013 approved a sign at 198 Washington Street that was 20 feet by 60 feet. The off-premise signs will not exceed 80 feet in height from the ground level of the Massachusetts Turnpike, so this addresses the concerns as to how high are these going to be. I will tell you that in this bylaw, they will not exceed 80 feet at the top of the sign from the ground level of the Massachusetts Turnpike, but one of the signs will actually only be at 65 feet. The off-premise signs shall not be located within 300 feet of a property line. There was a concern about that initially. It was 200 feet. I won't go through all of the slides showing the pictures of it because you can see it from outside, and I know we're going to just go through quickly on the technology so you feel confident and comfortable with what we're showing you here. But I would show you, we wanted to make sure that you did see the nighttime view. And if you start at the left and then cross over, we put an arrow where the sign is, and then there is another sign on the far right that is so difficult to see. We should have probably put an arrow there, but that is what it looks like at night. And you can, again, you can go outside and see that the ambient lighting is only directed at a certain area. The specifications, again, this comes right from the bylaw, so I won't go through it all, but just to address some of the concerns of town meeting members, the primary purpose is to advertise to those on the Massachusetts Turnpike. It's not to advertise to people driving down Route 12. You won't even see the advertisement from Route 12. You can only display static images on this, and they can only change every 10 seconds. They're highly regulated, state and federal. Both the Federal Highway Administration and the Mass Department of Transportation have both said that there is no danger to signs that change as long as the intervals are a minimum of 10 seconds. So this does comply with Massachusetts and federal laws. There will not be flashing, animation, movement of any kind, and the light is restricted as well to the 0.3-foot candles. The question had come up, what will they advertise, and more importantly, what won't they advertise? So we're here to tell you that the mall and Total Outdoor Media worked with us, and they agreed to put right in the bylaw that they will not advertise marijuana products of any type or establishments, tobacco products, and adult entertainment. The question had come up, what happens if the mall abandons the signs or Total Media abandons the sign, and will the town incur the cost of removing these? So in the bylaw now that you have before you, we are requiring a form of surety, either in the form of an escrow account, a bond, or other type of surety that would be approved by the planning board in an amount of up to 150% of the cost of removal. And that cost of removal would be worked on and submitted to the planning board through the town engineer. And again, it would go through site plan approval from the planning board, so the planning board would have control over that. So there would be a bond or a surety in place should that ever happen. And in a little bit, I'll show you that that should never happen, because Massachusetts Department of Transportation has an outdoor advertising division, and they monitor and regulate these even more strict than what our bylaw would do. So there is a requirement under the state for removal if the state withdraws its permit or its license. So the town meeting concerns that were brought to us, and again, we thank you for doing that because it made for a better product. The town meeting asked what were the height of the signs from the pike. So now that's been defined. They're a maximum of 80 feet from the ground level of the pike. Total Media reduced the height of the east-facing sign by 15 feet and the west-facing sign by 5 feet. The west-facing sign couldn't be reduced anymore because of the tree level, and you would not have been able to see it, and obviously don't want to remove any trees. It places restrictions on the type of advertising to prohibit advertising marijuana, tobacco, and adult entertainment. Again, Mass DOT and its Office of Outdoor Advertising regulate these very stringently. And as far as the signs being a dangerous distraction, they're in full compliance with state and federal regulations which set the standards for safety, which say that as long as it's no less than 10-second changes, there is no danger. And it does establish that surety bond. Some of the other concerns were the light pollution. And as you can see from the sign outside, there is no light pollution. It's a really interesting technology. It's new. It's only been around for maybe 3 or 4 years. The distraction, the issue of whether drivers are distracted. Again, these will only be facing the Massachusetts Turnpike, and the Federal Highway Administration found that there is no adverse impact from electronic signs with a minimum of 10-second intervals. A concern had come up that a bylaw should not benefit one person or company. The Regional Mall Overlay District only applies to one owner. So that was already established several years ago. It applies to the mall. It doesn't apply to anyone else. It applies to 2 parcels that are owned by Auburn Mall. So this is amending the Regional Mall Overlay District that applies only to one entity, but understanding that there are multiple businesses that are in the mall, and those businesses will be able to benefit by the utilization of billboards for advertising to bring more customers to their stores. What would the town advertise? The town can advertise town events, public service announcements, community messages. It could be part of our economic development initiatives, and at the end I'll just show you how this would happen, but basically Total Outdoor would be donating to the town approximately 80 hours or up to 80 hours of free advertising, 20 hours per signed face, times 4 signed faces, so up to 80 hours per month. The pictures have been provided that does show that there is no light pollution, and again, we did bring this model to, for informational purposes to town meeting members that attended in September. And I just want to note that Mass DOT not only regulates them and permits and licenses them, but they also look for adverse effects. So I won't go through these, but one thing I do want to point out that it does say if a sign is abandoned, within 30 days, the sign has to be taken down. Again, the state has a way of going after the owners as well, but in addition, we would have this surety, so that would ensure that the town would not incur that cost. They also look at the type of advertising as far as the style of it. It can't be flashing, intermittent, moving lights, or display moving video or scrolling advertising. And they also look at the area. They said that no permit will be granted for a sign that would not be in harmony with or suitable to a surrounding area and would do significant damage to the visual environment. So the state wouldn't permit it if they thought that this had a negative impact on the neighborhood. So the significant changes that are here before you this evening in this amendment is that it reduces the height of the signs and clarifies the measurement as 80 feet maximum from the ground level of the pike. It increases the distance from the sign to residential lot lines from 200 feet to 300 feet. It establishes a surety equal to 150% of the cost of the removal. It ensures compliance with state and federal laws and regulations by putting it right into the bylaw. And it prohibits promotion of products and services related to marijuana, tobacco, and adult entertainment. And again, why should we be doing this? Why is this important, and why are we back here again seeking your approval for this? The Auburn Mall has been part of this community since 1971. It employs Auburn residents, it generates spin-off activity, and it's partnered with the town and many other organizations in town for community and economic development activity. They're our top taxpayer, and they're our top employer. They're the second highest taxpayer after the mall, pays only 30% of what the mall pays the town. So although there's full occupancy at the mall, and they're doing very well, and no one's going to tell you that without these billboards the mall is going to close. We're not saying that, the mall is not saying that. What we're saying is malls across the country need to look at alternate sources of revenue that are non-retail related. The industry is changing. It's a global change in retail markets. Malls need to find a way to reinvent themselves and bring in additional revenue to stay viable. Thus, we see the Reliant Medical Center going into the mall. Retail tenants in the mall can use these digital signs to advertise. They can enhance their marketing efforts. It can help them become more successful and bring more customers to the mall. We want the mall to have more customers. We want the mall to do well. It will also provide additional revenues to the mall. How does this benefit the town? The town assesses the mall and commercial properties based on the Department of Revenue's income to value approach. That means that the assessed value is based on the income revenues that come into that business. So if the business brings in more revenues, the town receives more tax revenues because we assess the property higher. Tied into this, and certainly I want to make this very clear, the town did not ask for this. This is not because of a donation, but there is a donation that has been offered to the town from Total Outdoor Media. And this voluntary donation would be $1 million to the town. It would be $25,000 per structure or $50,000 per year. So $25,000 for each of the signs or $50,000. And they have offered to pay the first 5 years up front, which would be a $250,000 payment right up front. It's unrestricted. The donation would have to be accepted by the Board of Selectmen. And it could be used for any number of things in the community. It could be used for economic development initiatives. It could be used to implement the Drury Square plan, the master plan, to try to bring more business into town, enhance our economic base and enhance our tax base. There were many things we could do with this. It also includes, as I mentioned, the 80 hours total per month for advertising, and they would also donate a freestanding digital sign to the town. So really quickly, I'd like to just ask Cheng Kwan from Media Resources to just come up really quickly, because a lot of questions had come up about the billboard and the technology of the billboard and what was it like. And while you can see it out there, I think just if we could just take 2 minutes of your time to just explain to you what that technology is. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Julie. So I'll be very, very brief. I know it's been a long period already. Yeah, no problem. So I just want to talk very briefly about our Sightline technology. It's patent pending. It's the only one out there right now. And the whole purpose behind it was exactly for situations like this where we have an excellent economic opportunity and development opportunity, but we want to be sure that local communities are not heavily affected by light trespass. The important thing to note here is that we've done this in a number of installations so far. I'll just go through those very, very quickly to show you that, what we did and then how it actually worked out. This is basically how it kind of works. You saw it outside, you may have seen it outside, but basically each individual LED is blocked by a little baffle, very, very straightforward, just like the kind of traffic lights, but ensures that light can't go directly from that LED into an undesired area. So I'll just go through this one case study here in South Carolina. So in the left map there, you've got a roadway which was the target of the billboard, and then a residential community above it, north of it. The picture in the top middle is from the roadway, and the picture on the top right is from that residential community. Since we put this one in, it's been about 2 years, and there has not been a single complaint from that residential neighborhood. And I think Julie showed the photos before. And if you've seen the actual demo, it gives you a good sense for what that actually looks like. Now, I just want to be clear that it does emit some light in the direction outside of in the protected area, but that light amount is reduced by 99%. So it's only 1% the brightness of the normal read. And the normal read is a brightness that is governed by your state regulations and federal regulations. The first one we did was in Toronto. Same thing again. We developed these for specific applications for specific sites. That's why it's called Sightline, and the Toronto one was also successful. This was our very first one from about 3.5 years ago, and again, not a single complaint that was mentioned to anybody after it was deployed. This is one in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and you can see down there, the location of the board was very close to a residential neighborhood, and the photos show the highway read and then the residential sort of appearance. And again, this has been 1.5 years, and same result from the community is that they were adamantly opposed at the very beginning. Once it actually went up, everybody was actually happy with the result. Okay, just to show briefly the mock-ups from the actual roadway. I think this is the I-9. I'll let Julie take care of this one.
Thank you. I just wanted to show you, because the question had come up. These were pictures that were done. A crane had been lifted and a sample had been put up digitally imposed on the crane that was actually there. And what you see here would actually be lower, the actual signs would be lower than what you see here. They did not bring another crane out for this second revised amendment, so we're just looking at these pictures. These were the pictures when it was going to be another 20 feet higher. So this is actually 20 feet less on one of these and 15 feet less on the other one. If you have any questions on the technology or on the bylaw, Mr. Moderator.
Any questions? I don't see anybody's hand. Yes, I do. Mrs. Corvo?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Carolyn Vangel Corvo, Precinct 1. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if we were to pass the warrant after that time, excluding the exemptions of the type of advertising that's excluded in the warrant, we the town have no more control over what is being advertised there. Is that correct?
The Auburn Mall would be overseeing the content of what is on those, just like any other billboard in town that is owned privately. It is under private ownership. The town does not own these.
Correct. So we would have no input as to whatever would be advertised, they would decide.
That's correct. And it is my understanding that the intent of these signs is to advertise businesses that are in the mall.
Okay, the intention being, that would be the intention, of course, and the people who are advertising on the billboard, would that change the income that the mall would be getting from it?
It could potentially increase the income. Now, the mall, again, they're limited to how many advertisements they can put on the face because of the 10-second issue, but at maximum, I believe they could have 8 advertisements per side, if I'm correct. And I'm looking up there because I just want to recognize that we do have Justin Feldhaus from the general manager of the mall here. And while I'm answering your question, I want to take the opportunity to say that a town meeting member had mentioned after the meeting that they were concerned that the mall, the rumor was that the mall wasn't working with the town or with the police chief. And I want to tell you that we are working extremely well with the mall. They've been tremendous to work with in the last 2 years. We've done a lot with them on security, on training, on a number of further police issues. They've been wonderful. So we have a good relationship with them. And I meant to mention that, and I also meant to acknowledge that the mall manager was here.
Any other questions? Okay, let's keep it to like one question. There's a lot of hands up, please. Mr. Natoli?
Thank you, Dennis Natoli, Precinct 1. I'd like to speak a little bit to the bylaw itself, as well as, I have a couple of issues with it. First of all, we had a town meeting a few years ago where we revised our sign bylaw. It actually took 2 meetings to get the parts on electronic signs. So what we have here is a sign company that wrote its own bylaw, and in it, it exempts itself from our sign bylaw. Not only just the part where the prohibited use under 3.7.5, but it exempts itself from all of our bylaw. At that point, we don't have no jurisdiction, no enforcement, no oversight. It puts instead of going through our bylaws, it puts it all on the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. That's one big part of this. The town has no really oversight other than site plan approval, which actually I would rather see this as a special permit, which would generate a site plan approval, but site plan approval won't generate a special permit. With that, you get a little more oversight on the construction. Going on from there, it looks to change the way we determine how a height of a structure is actually done. All structures in town, signs included in buildings, are done from the base grade to the top of the building. Here, it basically says, shall be the grade of the nearest roadway. Well, if that roadway is an elevated road as the Mass Pike, okay, if it's 20 feet and they're looking for 80, basically in the beginning they were looking for 100 feet, so this is not a change. It's basically another way of rewording the same sign that they wanted the first time. And if the grade is different, it could actually be higher because it doesn't put a restriction other than being a relative to the nearest highway, which is basically like saying if I have a 400 square foot, 400... There's been debate, that's what the town meeting is for. That's what we do at a town meeting. We debate.
Let's wind it up, Mr. Natoli.
Okay, well, there's the issues on the bylaw itself. If you read the bylaw, again, I would hope everyone does, it specifically asks for an off-premises sign, which that sign is used for advertising things that are not on the premises. So I'm not too sure how it's going to benefit the stores if that's what they're asking for, and every part of this mentions that type of sign. So I work with bylaws a lot, and I read it, and I'm seeing a lot of flaws in this bylaw. And I'm hoping that besides what I think is going to have a dramatic aesthetic impact on what's left of the beauty of this town, having these loom over Drury Square, we really need to look at this bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Natoli. Mr. Harper?
Bruce Hopper, Precinct 1.
Please keep it quick, if you don't mind. One question.
Thank you.
Huh? No, one question, that's... Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. As I stated, Bruce Hopper, Precinct 1. I have a question with respect to the restrictions, paragraph D. Lists a whole bunch of what I would phrase as moral issues. So I'm wondering why we did not include alcoholic beverages.
Alcoholic beverages are advertised in many places. The newer issues are the marijuana issues, which we have heard concerns expressed from people in the community. We've also heard concerns in the past about adult entertainment and tobacco because of use with children. My understanding again is that the majority of the advertising would be used for those stores that are actually in the mall. The intent of this is to help generate revenues for the mall and to help those stores that are in the mall.
Right, but we also don't want to set ourselves up for a lawsuit. So I think,
I'm sorry,
point is,
what type of lesson?
well, we're making a moral decision here by excluding certain things to protect children and the general public, but yet we're keeping one vice out, which is alcohol, which is a big problem, and we don't want children seeing that. So my point is, and maybe I need to move to amend, is either we're all in or we're not. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me, and again, I think you're setting yourself up, the town up for a lawsuit that says, you know, why are you excluding us but not alcoholic beverages? Because it's the same argument.
I just want to assure everyone that this bylaw has been reviewed by town council. It will also be reviewed by the Attorney General's office.
Well, respectfully, Mr. Moderator, I'd move to amend it to include alcoholic beverages.
I'll second the amendment.
You have to write it out, please.
Okay.
We can wait for, get this amendment out of the way first, please.
Again, I just want to make just a reminder that these signs will be facing the Massachusetts Turnpike. They're not facing Route 12, they're not facing neighborhoods. They are intended under Massachusetts DOT regulations as well as under this bylaw to focus on vehicles that are traveling on the Massachusetts Turnpike.
If somebody has a quick question while we're waiting, I'll be happy to call on you, but a quick one, please. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
I've been coming to town meeting.
Name and precinct.
I'm Liz Gribbins, Precinct 5. I've been here at town meeting in one form or another for the last 17 years. And my question to you is, why are we having restrictions on debate? Why can we only ask questions when people can clearly get up and move the question?
Goodly put.
You want to read that, Bruce?
Yeah, so it move to amend Article 23, paragraph 2, 4.5, 1.05, paragraph D. It would, so on the third line there, depiction or promotion of the use, distribution or sale of any marijuana, comma, scratch the word or, then it'd be tobacco, and then insert or alcoholic beverage, and then the rest would read the same product or any form of alcohol, entertainment, et cetera, et cetera.
Any questions on the amendment? There's no hands up, so. There's no, you're moving the question, right? Yes. Oh, that's okay. We don't have to do that. There's no questions on the amendment right now that I can see. So. Who? Oh, you have a question, Mr. Byland? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were moving the question.
William Byland, Precinct 2. Does adult entertainment include gambling? Because I'd like to add that to it.
I'll second it.
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know if anybody can answer that question.
I would tell you that under the law, adult entertainment would be adult entertainment establishments. That's not gambling establishments.
Okay, are we ready for the amendment?
Did he talk about this, or he's only making an amendment to D, right?
Yeah, yeah.
As a matter of fact, I just want to be, if I may, I just want to be clear. So if you look at D, it specifies what adult entertainment is. Adult live entertainment establishment, adult bookstore, adult video store, adult paraphernalia store, or adult motion picture theater.
Are we ready for the question? We're voting just on the amendment, not on the main motion. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hands. All of those opposed? I better count it. All those in favor, please raise their hand of the amendment, just the amendment. We need a counter over here. Well, we got one. We need a, there we go. Okay, please raise them high and keep them up, please. All those in favor of the amendment, raise their hand.
This is the amendment to add.
This is just the amendment.
I move we add alcohol, right?
You got a number for them? Oh, here they come. Huh?
12.
All those opposed, please hold up there. Who's counting this? How many is foreign? How many?
Yeah, 19. No, you counted yourself in one of these.
Yep.
10, 11, 12, 13. We had that change before. So we got 11 no's, we got 14 yes. 14, 11 yes. Like the amendment?
11 yes.
11 yes. Okay.
And against is what? 14. Yeah. Rocco, did Sarah and...
I didn't count Sarah, no.
No,
She
you
made
did.
50.
21?
The amendment fails, 55 opposed, 33 for it. Now we're back to the main motion. Mr. Dufour?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The question I have is in regards to the donation that this company is purported to give, is what kind of guarantees that we have that they're going to fulfill on it. I spoke to a gentleman outside. He said that it's actually part of a contract that's made that the donation will be forthcoming. And he said it was in place of, and I forget the exact terminology, but basically an illegal fee. And so I want to know, how come we're negotiating about illegal fees?
Let me be perfectly clear, this is not illegal and it's not a fee. This is a donation to the town that was offered to the town. Let me also be clear, it wasn't negotiated. There is no negotiating a donation.
Is there a contract?
Once this is done, there would be a contract provided to the town to assure the donation, yes, because they've offered to make the donation. The Board of Selectmen is required to vote to accept that donation, so something has to be in writing on that, yes. There is no negotiation. There is no fee. This would come before us whether we had a donation offered to us or not. This is a proposed bylaw amendment. It's a zoning amendment.
Could the other gentleman from Total Outdoor come up so we could revisit our discussion from outside?
No, that's enough question.
I will tell you that at the September 28th meeting, the question was asked by one of our town meeting members, what would happen to the donation if the company changed hands or a different operator came in? And the response from Total Outdoor Media was that the donation was going to go forward regardless. And
Okay.
that is on the tape on the September 28th meeting.
Okay, we ready for the question? Mr. Haroyan?
Chris Haroyan, Precinct 2. Ed, what would be the economic impact for the community, and this needs to be taken, if the Auburn Mall were to close? Could you quantify that? I mean, this needs to be taken into our vote tonight because that clearly has an impact to the town. It's a huge economic impact. No, it improves the viability of the mall, and that's what can you quantify that, Ed?
Well, first of all, it would have a major economic impact on Auburn. Certainly, I think the town manager has indicated that they're our largest taxpayer. And if somehow that were to impact the level of taxation, certainly, I mean, you can clear out the mall, businesses can move on. There is still a value to the mall, but it would be a blight to the community. So, yeah, I mean, they're a major taxpayer, and we value them as a business. They keep us stable, and so, yeah, it would have a detrimental impact on the town of Auburn. In addition to 300 jobs that they provide to the community.
Anybody else? Well, I don't know, I can't see. Jack Fowley? Oh, Jeff. Oh, Beth, I'm sorry. I didn't see you back there.
Thank you. Once again, Beth Crowder, Precinct 1. I'm looking at these pictures. I understand that you can control so the lighting won't be seen by residents who might be close enough, and I think they are. But the black part of your signs isn't gorgeous. It's really not what I want to see in my neighborhood, and I won't. So, but I am concerned about everybody in Precinct 1, not just myself. And the big black, sort of like a basketball court, the back of a basketball hoop, will be seen, I believe. And I think that's something people should consider. Thank you.
Oops. I'm sorry, I was going to pull up some signs. They were pictures taken when they put the cranes up from different angles in different neighborhoods. And predominantly, they could not be seen from the majority of streets in the area. I know this area with the blocked area and the brightness, the 1% off of Center, primarily that 30% cone is where you're going to be able to see this. Outside of that, it's like looking at a cell phone, the black screen on a cell phone. I just also think it's important to note we have 9 billboards in town. None of them employ this type of contemporary technology. Some of them are not attractive, but they are there, and they're legal. They were approved. They are there. We can't respond to the issues of we don't want to have billboards in town at all, because we do have billboards in town. But again, we can make sure that we have billboards that are regulated, that have minimal impact, and that are situated in an area that doesn't give light pollution to those residents that are within view of them.
Anybody else? Mr. No? Sorry.
Evening, Tom Kais, Precinct 4. Just a quick question. What's the process in place for emergency services to get something like an Amber Alert or some sort of emergency message up onto those boards?
So it depends. These boards are all network controlled through the Total Outdoors operations. So depending on the actual content software that they have, they can, for example, set up a portal that allows your emergency services to directly link in, or a call could be placed to their operations center to put a priority message up. And most of those operation centers, their guys work 24/7. So it depends on the actual equipment that's installed, but it's a very fast, very effective process, because this is used, throughout the country. You've probably seen Amber Alerts on these boards in the past.
Mr. Bergeron.
I'd like to move the question to a vote on Article 23.
We're going to move the vote. We do have a second. All those in favor of Article 23, please raise your signs. Oh, yeah. How many want to move the question? I'm sorry, I just figured everybody did. Thank you. Thank you. All those opposed to moving the question? I got 1, 2, 3. It passes. It's moved. All those in favor of Article 23, please raise your hand. Raise your hands. Counters better count them. This is a 2/3 vote.
Sarah's one. Sarah.
18. Oh. One more. 19. Yes. Yes.
All those opposed to Article 23, please raise your hands.
Nine? Nine.
That's two-thirds. 60 is two-thirds. The motion passes 64 to 26. Before we take on the last article, I would just like to request that for the annual town meeting, you bring your warrants with you so that they don't have to bring some with them. Mrs. Grimo here or... Huh? Yeah, bring in your whole packet, please, so they're not running off tons and tons of paper. Article 24, to see if the town meeting will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept as a gift, without monetary consideration and without reservation of any kind, a deed or deeds of land from Robert C. Post to the town of Auburn, conveying the following parcels of land. 159 South Hole Road, containing 1.41 acres of land with frontage on South Hole Road, as further described in the records of the town assessor as map 20, lot 82. 160 South Hole Road, consisting of 1.05 acres of land, backland, no frontage, and further described in the records of the town assessor's map 20 as lot 19. And number 3, 161 South Hole Road, consisting of 1.23 acres, with frontage on South Hole Road, and further described in the records of the town assessor, it's map 20 as lot 9, or act on anything relative thereto. Is there a motion? Mrs. Corvo?
Yes, Carolyn Evangel Corvo, Precinct 1. Mr. Moderator, I move that town meeting vote to approve Article 24 as written in the warrant for the October 24th, 2017 special town meeting. And I remember.
Is there a second? You have a second. Anybody opposed? Everybody's in favor? Okay, need a motion to dissolve? Second? All in favor?